one.
Hello, we are back. We're doing another day in our book club. Be Holy, for I Am Holy book club. We are reading the beautiful visions of Anne Catherine Emmerich, blessed. She was beatified in 2004 by Pope John Paul II. So that means that all of her visions were okay by the Catholic Church, right, Anne?
Yeah, they go through them with a fine-tooth comb, make sure they're not against doctrine, make sure they're historically correct and all of that. It doesn't mean we have to believe it, but they're correct as far as they don't go against doctrine.
Yes.
But I believe it personally. Jeanette and I believe it.
Yeah. And it really, really, really enriches our faith because it gives you a different insight. You feel like you're there in her actual vision.
You got to show them that book at the end that you just showed me today at Whole
I don't
Foods.
know where I put it. I have to find it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about it after.
Okay.
All right. Go.
Okay. So Jesus in the Valley of Shepherds near Bethlehem. Jesus leaving Beth Araba directed his steps, followed by many of his last audience, toward the Valley of the Shepherds, about 3.5 hours distant. Once I saw him with the disciples under an open shed, eating corn and red berries, which they had gathered on the way. Then the disciples separated, each taking a different road, Jesus having appointed the place at which they should again join him. As they went along, they told all whom they met about Jesus and exhorted them to penance and baptism, if they had not already been baptized. Many of those whom they thus exhorted followed them to the appointed meeting place, there to listen to the teaching of Jesus. Jesus himself took very circuitous routes.
Circuitous
routes. And I often saw him passing half the night alone on the hills in prayer, so that the whole time of the journey was entirely filled up. I heard the disciples beseeching him not to bring on an untimely death by the little care he took of his body, his fasting, his going barefoot, his long night watches during that cold, damp season. But Jesus reproved them gently and went gravely on his way. Before daybreak, I beheld him and his disciples descending the mountainside into the Valley of the Shepherds. The shepherds dwelling around already knew of his coming. All had been baptized by John, and some even had dreams and visions of the approach of the Lord. Several were on the watch for him. They gazed uninterruptedly toward the point whence he might be seen coming down the mountain. Suddenly he appeared in sight. They beheld him shining with glory and surrounded by light, descending into the valley. For many of these simple-hearted people were highly favored with grace. Instantly they sounded a horn to arouse the more distant dwellers and summon them to the spot. This was their custom at every extraordinary occurrence. All hastened to meet the Lord. They knelt before him with head lowly bent, their long staves resting in their arms, many of them prostrated flat on their face. They were short doublets to the knee, mostly of sheepskin. Some opened the breast, others closed. Their wallets hung on their shoulders. They greeted Jesus in words from the Psalms that foretold the coming of the Messiah and proclaimed Israel's gratitude for the fulfillment of the promise. Jesus showed them great affection and congratulated them on their happy state. Here and there, he taught in the huts they lay around the broad meadow valley, his instructions turning upon the pastoral life which he treated in parables. And
Then, followed by his hearers, he passed farther on through the valley toward Jerusalem to the shepherd tower. This tower stood on an eminence in the center of a field, its foundation being huge field stones. It consisted of a very high superstructure of beams, supported in part by the green trees around it. The walls were hung with mats. There were galleries and outside steps around it, and at various distances, little covered standing places like sentry boxes. From a distance, it looked like a ship with high masts and spreading sails. It also bore some resemblance to the towers in the land of the three kings from which they watched the stars. The whole country around could be scanned from this tower. Even Jerusalem and the mountain upon which Jesus was at a later period tempted by Satan. The shepherds made use of it to catch their heads and ward off threatening danger. Some of them, with their families, dwelt around it in a circle of 5 hours in circumference, in farmhouses separated or surrounded by gardens and fields. But their general rendezvous was in the near neighborhood of the tower. Here they kept their various utensils, and here the herdsmen received their food. All along the base of the tower hill were huts, and at some distance from it, a large enclosed shed wherein the wives of the herdsmen dwelt and prepared the food. These women did not go forth with the rest to meet the Lord and his disciples, but later on they were instructed by Jesus. There were about 20 shepherds living around here. Jesus instructed them, called their attention to the happiness of the state of their life, and told them that he had come to visit them because he had greeted them in his infancy and had lovingly treated both himself and his parents. He taught especially in parables of shepherds and herds, telling them that he too was a shepherd, that he had under him other shepherds who till the end of time should gather together, heal, and guide his flocks. Then the shepherds told Jesus all about the glad tidings brought them by the angels, also about Mary, Joseph, and the child. They had seen, they said, the image of the child in the star that had hovered over the crib cave. They told of the kings and how they in their turn had beheld the shepherd tower in the stars, and of the numerous gifts they had left here on their return to their own country. Many of them had been put to use both in the tower and in the surrounding huts, which were formed of coarse canvas. Some of the old men present had in their youth been at the crib. They repeated the story all over again to Jesus. Next day, Jesus and the disciples were escorted by the shepherds farther on toward Bethlehem to the dwellings of the sons of the three eldest shepherds, to whom the angels at Christ's birth had first appeared, and who first had offered him their homage of veneration. They were now dead and lay buried not far from the dwellings, which were about 1 hour's distance from the crib cave. 3 sons of the old shepherds were still alive, and they were themselves old men. They were held in great respect by all the others, their families being something like superior over the rest, something similar to the 3 kings among their people. They received Jesus very humbly and joyfully and led him to the graves of their fathers. The site was an isolated hill covered by a vineyard. The base was surrounded by a kind of covered walk from which opened various caves and cellars. The cave containing the remains of the old shepherds was high up on the hill. The light entering from above disclosed the 3 graves which lay together in the ground, 2 parallel, the third lengthwise between them, thus 1-1. They were closed by doors. The shepherds opened the graves for Jesus, and I saw brown faces of the closely enveloped corpses. Ooh. The space around the coffins was filled with little pebbles. The shepherd crooks lay in the coffins by their owners. The shepherds also showed Jesus the treasure that they still had from the gifts of the 3 kings, and which was concealed here in the cave. It consisted of little bars of gold and whole pieces of very costly stuffs embroidered in gold. They asked Jesus whether or not they should give it to the temple. He answered by telling them to keep it for the community which was to form the new temple, and he foretold to them that there would one day be a church erected over this tomb. On this hill began a vineyard that extended toward Gaza. It was the usual burial place of the shepherds. From here, the Lord was conducted to the place of his birth in the crib cave, distant about an hour. Their way led through a remarkably beautiful meadow valley. 3 paths ran through it between tracts of fruit trees trimmed into shape. The shepherds told on the way of the angelic, and I saw all again in pictures. The angels had appeared in 3 different places, first to the 3 shepherds, then on the following night at the shepherd tower, and lastly at the wall near the spot at which Jesus had the day before been welcomed by shepherds. Around the shepherd tower, they appeared in greater numbers, long wingless figures, and the shepherds took Jesus into the tomb cave of Maraha, Abraham's nurse, near the great pine tree. So that's the end of that. It kind of cuts right there. And next reading will be the crib cave, a place of demotion among the shepherds. So let's go back to the first here. There was a lot of description, so I don't think this is going to be very long. There's just a little bit of interesting, but very interesting nevertheless. So here Jesus is leaving the Betharaba, directed by a step. Now, if we had the map, I'd be able to show this, but there were just so many maps that it's too much. Someday I'm going to attach the maps to these lessons. But in any case, or to these chapters, followed by many of his last audience toward the Valley of the Shepherds. So about 3.5 hours distance. You see how she talks about hours instead of miles? Like we measure things in miles. They measure things in time, and that would be walking time. So that's interesting because they didn't have cars, remember. So once he saw him with the disciples, she saw him with the disciples in an open shed eating corn and red berries. Think about it. I think about, well, what did Jesus do all day on his time on earth? He was teaching, and how did he sit? How did he, like, you kind of wonder, like, I wish I could just go back and have a glimpse of him. So that's what this gives us. He's sitting in an open shed eating corn and red berries. Jesus, eating corn and red berries. Like, I don't know why that just tickles me. I don't know what it is. But like to see him do normal human stuff is just, I don't know, it's kind of cool. But, because we get to hear all the gospel stories over and over, but these are like new details and they're kind of fun. So they had gathered the berries on the way. So here they were separating them, and Jesus saying, okay, join me over here. So he's giving them direction when they are going to walk along. So, and of course, he's telling them about penance and baptism. If you notice, penance and baptism always go together here, because these are adults. You know, when we're children and we get baptized, which Catholics do that, we don't have to worry about penance, you know, but we do before communion. We go and we tell about our sins, and you know, before we make our communion, we have our first confession. If you don't know, as a little kid, it's usually what, Jeanette, second grade or whatever. What is it,
Yeah.
second or third grade? Yeah, so it's kind of cute. But anyway, so they go along, and she's saying all of who met Jesus, and he exhorted them to the baptism, but they, if they had not already been baptized. So he's like, come on, everybody, let's get us all baptized. Like he's trying to get every single person he meets baptized. That's it. He doesn't just say, well, you're good enough to be baptized. You're good enough. Oh, are you a Catholic? You know, it's not like that. He wants everybody he meets. He's telling them, you know, he's hoping, you know.
And
so
that right there tells you how important baptism is.
yes.
First, he himself did it.
Yes. Good
And then
point.
secondly, he's drawing all these people, repent, be baptized. It's very important.
Yeah.
You know,
Really
everybody
is.
that doubts it and doesn't believe it, that's fine. But wouldn't you like to be wrong instead of not
Yeah.
doing it? Like, you know.
I think, thank God I didn't die young, because I would have been in purgatory a very long time. But you know, now that's why I'm always telling Elizabeth those tricks. Say 2 Our Fathers, 2 Hail Marys, and 2 Glory Bees. So if this is what I say, like I couldn't get my kids to pray. So, you know, because she's like, oh, I do pray. I'm like, oh yeah, you say, God, please give me this, God, please give me that. But what we need to get them to start doing is saying the 2 Our Fathers. Like I said, I told her this is how I do it: 1 Our Father, 1 Hail Mary, 1 Glory Be. Then I do another Our Father, another Hail Mary, and another Glory Be. And if that keeps me out of purgatory, chance it. It's 2 minutes, guys. 2 minutes. Like, how much easier could it be? So if there's no way you could get your kids to pray or to do what you want, get them to do just that and say, hey, listen, what if this works? And make a big funny joke about it. And guess what? I guarantee you they'll be doing it behind your back and you may not know.
Supposed
So
to keep you in purgatory? I didn't know that.
yeah, that's the one from Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, and another one. I've sent it to you a couple of times. I'll send it to you again. So anyway, it's okay. It's okay. You do that with me too. You know, sometimes you tell me about something and I'm like, what? You told me about that? So you're not alone. Don't worry.
Okay.
That's part of having ADD. Many of those whom they exhorted followed them to the appointed meeting place, were there to listen to the teaching. So here now, Jesus got his baptism. So what is he doing? He's teaching. He's on his way to the wedding of Cana. Because remember, if you do the rosary, it's gospel on a string. So what's the next mystery? It's wedding of Cana. But as soon as he gets baptized, he's running around telling everyone, hey, go back there and get baptized. Hey, or come here and let me baptize you, you know. So, and then it says that he took his very circuitous route. So that means he's going around, circuiting around stuff. And then he's passing half the night alone on the hills in prayer. If Jesus has to spend half the night praying, what should we be doing? Praying every day, all day, right?
Exactly.
Why
Can
is
be
he doing that?
holy.
Because he's connecting to God. We need prayer is a telephone cord. And when I don't pray, I keep doing one stupid thing after another. My day just sucks. God forgive me talking like that. If I don't get up first thing in the morning and say my prayers, and I say, well, I'm going to say them later because I'm tired, or me and Jeanette have a reading, a lot of times my day will suck. So I try to say a couple of prayers. Like if I have something I have to do, like if I have to go to the doctor, I have to be there, which I try to make my doctor's appointments after. But if I have to, I'm like a little bit scared to drive, you know, I should be a little bit more not to talk. So before Jeanette and I come on and I first wake up, I'm like, Lord, please make my day fruitful. Like, make me do what's in your will today. I'm giving you this day because you know why? I'm so afraid. I'm always like, oh, this is going to go wrong. That's going to go wrong. If I go somewhere, I lose my phone, I drop something, if I do my prayers, I do so much better. Here's Jesus praying half the day. How much should we pray if he's doing half the day to stay connected? So anyway, that was that. Okay, so let's go on. So he took of his body, his fasting. If Jesus had to fast, I think I need to, I've been off fasting for like 2 weeks now, and I got to get back. He's going barefoot. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. I do have my moccasins though. My moccasins I got them because they feel like I'm barefoot. His long night watches in the cold damn season. And he didn't have like a stove and hot tea, although I guess he could start fires, but and he reproved them gently and went gravely on his way. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't get really what that means. He reproved them gently and went gravely on his way.
Like he disciplines them gently, nicely,
Got it.
Then he keeps going on his way for what next. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, that makes sense. So then before daybreak, the mountainside, she's describing all this, and all had been baptized. Some even had dreams and visions of the approach of the Lord. See, Lord, if we're lucky and we're paying attention, God will send us the grace of visions and knowingness and dreams. Those are not just consolations, they're gifts. He's given you a gift if you have a dream of something. If we try to stay in grace, he's going to give us those things, guys. If we try not to sin and we don't sin, we're going to be so much more connected to God. That's why we want to avoid sin. So the shepherds dwelling already knew of his coming. They had been baptized by John, had the dreams and visions. Several were on watch for him. They knew he was coming. They gazed uninterrupted toward the point when they see he would be coming. Suddenly he appeared in their sight. They beheld him shining with glory and surrounded by light. They were so excited. For many of these simple-hearted people were highly favored with grace. Why? I think they prayed a lot. Instantly, they sounded a horn, woo, woo, arousing the more distant dwellers, summoning them. Oh my God, come here, you guys. This was their custom at very extraordinary occurrences. All hastened to meet the Lord. The excitement sounds incredible. And then what did they do? They knelt.
Wasn't there a horn? What was it called? Show.
Yeah.
Show. Yeah, it was that big old long thing in the Old Testament.
Yeah. That's probably what it was. That's probably the one. And then it says they knelt before him with their head lowly bent. No wonder these Pharisees and all got so jealous. Their long staves resting in their arms, many of them prostrated. And then they wore these short doublets. I don't know what that means, but sounds like long
like
short
vest or a long.
Yeah, maybe like that, colettes or whatever they're called. Yeah. Mostly of sheepskin, some open on the breast, others closed, their wallets hung on their shoulder. They greeted him from words of the Psalms. I just got that. I'm just waiting for that book to come about the Psalms, and I'm trying to say it every day. I taped it 30 minutes or 20 minutes, so I've been turning it on when I go to sleep and listen to the all 150 Psalms. I taped it. I put it on my YouTube. I'll put it below. Yeah, so if you ever want to just listen, they are the short Psalms that Father Mend, well, I forget what his name is, but it's called The Joy of whatever, but he shortened each psalm to one sentence or two sentences. And so I read all 150 of them. It takes about 20 minutes. So you can listen as you're going to sleep. If you can stand my voice though, sorry. I don't have the best voice. But anyway, so the Psalms that foretold the coming of the Messiah and proclaimed Israel's gratitude for the fulfillment of the promise. And Jesus showed them great affection and congratulated them on their happy state. Jesus likes when we're happy, guys. He doesn't want us miserable. He wants us happy. So always remember that. Always remember that. Yes, when we are suffering, we need to embrace it because it's changing us. When we're suffering, it's because there's something that we're doing that God needs us to change on. We need to humble ourselves and follow him. But what he really wants is not us suffering to change. He wants us already to be at the happy state. He wants us already there. So he taught in the huts, lay around the broad meadows, his instructions turning toward the pastoral life. He treated in parables. Remember, he had to teach in parables so that they wouldn't kill him before he finished out the complete mission he had to do for those 3 years. So he was followed by hearers, passed further in the valley, and now it's telling a lot about the description, which if you sit and imagine, it just sounds so like amazing and charming, and maybe didn't feel that way to them, but looking at it from this and painting the picture feels very charming. But then what happens? The whole country around would be scanned from this tower, even Jerusalem and the mountain which Jesus was at later period tempted by Jesus. So this becomes a very significant place we're seeing here. So the shepherds made use of it, catch their herds, ward off a threatened danger. Some of them with their families dwelt in a circle about 5 hours in circumference. There we go again with measuring things by hours. That's a pretty big circumference, 5 hours circumference. I mean, I know walking takes a while, but still. In farmhouses surrounded by gardens and fields, but their general rendezvous was near a neighborhood of the tower where they kept these certain utensils and where they got the food and all. So it says these women did not go forth with the rest to meet the Lord and his disciples, but later on they were instructed by Jesus. So I guess women, the wives and the men were separate. They were separate because men were supposed to lead their families like the priests. That every man is a priest of his home. So there are about 20 shepherds living around. Jesus instructed them, called their attention to the happiness of the state of their life, and told them he had come to visit them because they had greeted him in his infancy and lovingly treated both himself and his parents. So because they were good to him, he comes back and blesses them with his presence. I mean, is that not amazing?
Awesome.
I know. He taught especially in parables of the shepherds and herdmen, telling them that he too was a shepherd. And they're probably looking at him like, what? You're a shepherd? Excuse me, but this is what a shepherd, you need some money. Anyway, so he had under him other shepherds till the end of time could gather, heal, and guide his flocks. And that's what they didn't think it was anything special. They just were like, just guide these flocks, They needed him. So then the shepherds told him about the glad tidings, brought the angels. Here we go, Jeanette. Angels. I love it. So the shepherds told Jesus about the glad tidings brought to them by the angels, and also about Mary, Joseph, and the child they had seen. And they said the image of the child and the star had hovered over the crib cave. Remember we learned about the crib cave not long ago? Huh? I can't hear you. Oh, okay. They told of the kings and showed how their behold the shepherd tower and their stars, numerous gifts they had received on their from their own country. A lot of them had been put both in the tower and surrounding huts, which were formed of course canvas. Some of the old men had their youth in the crib. They repeated the story over again to Jesus. Yo, my crib. Sounds like today's, slang. Yo, my crib. Next day, Jesus and the disciples were escorted by the shepherds further toward Bethlehem and the dwellings of the son of the 3 eldest shepherds, who the angels at Christ's birth had first appeared. Like, wow, here they are, grown, and who had first offered him their homage of veneration. They were now dead and buried not far from the dwellings, which were about an hour's distance from the crib cave. So look at that. It seems like so huge of an area, but it's a little smaller than we think. I would love to go to the Holy Land, but look what's happening over there now, a war. It's too scary, you know. So so these three sons, they were still alive and were themselves old men. Here they had been little children. And they were held in great respect by all the others. So apparently they had good families, their families being something like superior over the rest, something similar to the three kings among their people. So these were very special people. So they received Jesus very humbly and joyfully and led him to the graves of their fathers. The site was an isolated hill covered by a vineyard. The base was surrounded by kind of covered walk from which opened various caves and cellars. This part sounded really interesting to me, like these opened caves you could see from above. So I just thought that was interesting. So the caves were containing the remains of old shepherds. Now I'd be scared to go in there, but I would love to.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be
Yeah.
scared though. Yeah, me too. So the light entering from above disclosed the three graves which lay together in the ground, two parallel. We can't go look at our graves. And then the third lengthwise, they're behind closed doors. When we put that dirt on, we don't see them again. They can actually see they're dead. And the
Really?
shepherds, yeah, isn't that weird?
I
And
don't like that.
the shepherds opened the graves for Jesus, and she says she saw the brown faces of closely enveloped corpse. Eek. The space around the coffin filled with little pebbles. The shepherd crooks lay in coffins by their owners. I don't know what that means, shepherd crooks, but I'm guessing that means that little cane thing, like the cane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it lay in the coffins by their owners. So they had their little rounded, like candy cane look in their things. So the shepherds also showed Jesus the treasure they still had from the gifts of the three kings. He's a grown up. He's 30 years
Wow.
old at this point. Yeah, 30. Was it 30? Yeah. Which was concealed here in the cave, consisted of solid bars of gold and whole pieces, very costly, embroidered in gold. They asked Jesus whether or not they should give it to the temple. What does he say? No, use it for the people, the community. On this hill began a vineyard extending toward Gaza. It was an unusual burial place for the shepherds. From there, the Lord was conducted to the place of his birth in the crib cave, because we've read about that, so that makes sense. The way led through a remarkable, beautiful meadow valley, 3 paths through it between the tracts of fruit, trimmed into like a shape. The shepherds told the way of the angelic, and she saw all again in pictures. So she has it in her mind, and as he told it, she was seeing the pictures. The angels appeared in 3 different places. First to the 3 shepherds, then on the following night, and then at the shepherd tower, and lastly at the well near the spot which Jesus had the day before been welcomed by the shepherds. Interesting. Around the tower appeared greater numbers, wingless figures. So that was interesting.
They were
And
angels again without wings.
I know. And it says around the shepherd tower, they appeared in great numbers, large wingless shepherds. And here they are, angels. The shepherds took Jesus into the tomb cave of Maraha, Abraham's nurse, and near the great pine tree. So it was an interesting reading, a little shorter, but a lot of interesting little things there, right?
Yeah.
What stood out to you for it? Anything or
Jesus actually going into tombs
no?
and looking at the people that were there. That's just,
Like
I
he
mean,
could make them rise.
why would you want to take Jesus to tomb?
I know, it's weird, and they're
Yeah,
brown.
it was odd. And then Jesus going, it's, yeah, Isaiah 55:8-9, girl. I'm gonna give
There
it to
you go. There you go. Covers it all, baby. Covers it all. Oh, you guys, So funny. I'm gonna put pictures up of Jeanette and her little convertible today when I saw
Oh
her in the
gosh.
news. I gotta put it up. It's so cute. I saw her and I'm like, look at her. She's so hot over there in her little red car.
Me
Uh,
blaring my music.
yeah, it was cute. It was cute. But anyways, that was a nice reading, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was nice, short,
Yeah,
good.
nice and short. I like it.
Sometimes you need a break from the other ones,
Yeah,
so
they're so long. So the next one, Jeanette, is the Crib Cave, a place of devotion among the shepherds. Oh, I can't wait. I just wish we could
great.
go visit the Crib Cave. We can't go visit Holy Land. It's too dangerous.
Well, it might
Uh,
get better. You never know.
oh, please. Hurry. I wish I could go, but I'm too scared. I wouldn't go even if I could. Even if I had the money, I wouldn't go. I'd be too scared.
I would go, but it needs to get better. It needs to
You would
be.
go. You were,
Oh
I
yeah.
know you would.
I just never had the money to go. And then when
I
I did,
know.
actually my friend Mickey, she bought me a ticket to go with her to the Holy Land. But I couldn't
Yeah.
go because I had to take care of my mom. So
See, if
she
you
gave
would have known me, I would have taken care of your mom for you.
Yeah, I know. But then so
What,
I
didn't you have anybody?
no. I ended up giving it to they ended up giving it, Mickey gave it to Jessica instead, my friend Jessica. I think you met Jessica. Um,
Yeah.
and she gave it to her and she had a great time, but I really wanted to go so bad. And Mickey knew that I couldn't afford it, so she bought it for me. And
That was
I
so
mean,
kind of her.
yes, and she does not have a lot of money. She's a pretty much on her own, working like a teacher, not making a lot of money, but yet she did that.
Oh, and
Yeah.
you couldn't get anyone to do
No,
it?
I couldn't. I
When
couldn't.
was that, Jeanette?
It was maybe 6 years ago or something like
Yeah, it
that.
was. How long have I known you now? What, like three now?
I think so. It was the year before COVID started, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was
The
after
year
my
before
mom died,
it
so it
started.
was like 2019, I think.
Maybe something like that.
It was so that means it was like 2 years before I met you. That's such a
Yeah.
shame that you couldn't have done that.
It's
Oh,
okay. It just wasn't meant to be. I see
missed
the Holy Land
opportunity.
all the time and beautiful
Well, maybe
stuff.
Jessica was meant to see it too, you know?
Hmm. That's true.
So it was nice that she got to go, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was beautiful. Come
Okay.
back and see us. We're going to be doing the Crib Cave, a place of devotion among the shepherds. So make sure you come back on Monday. All right. If we're doing it Monday or Wednesday, I'm not sure. We're not sure next week what day we're doing it, but we'll let you know.
Bye, guys.
Bye.